I'd like to thank the members of the Academy for honoring my fellow nominees and myself. This means a lot to me since it comes from a role in which I was directed by my father. Hard moments are, they have to be hard. If they weren't hard, it wouldn't be any good. Anjelica Huston stayed quiet for decades about her 17-year relationship. With Jack Nicholson, everyone knew he cheated, but no one knew the real story. In 2025, at 74, she finally broke her silence. She revealed the shocking truth about why she stayed despite everything. The affairs, the violence, the secret pregnancies, and the moment she beat him with her fists until he cowed. But her biggest confession wasn't about his betrayals. It was about a secret she kept hidden. For 6 years, that changed everything. Anjelica Huston was born on July 8th, 1951 in Los Angeles at the Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, but even her birth came with drama. Her father, the famous director John Huston, was thousands of miles away in Uganda filming The African Queen. He had to be reached by telegram at a local post office just to be told his daughter had arrived. Her mother, Enria S., was a gifted ballerina, and Anjelica came into a family that looked magical from the outside, but it was a strange kind of home. Anjelica didn't go to school like most children. She and her brother Tony were tutored at home. They grew up in silence, surrounded by fields and animals cut off from other kids. Their father was barely there, and their mother was often left alone to manage things. As the years passed, more family members appeared, including an adopted brother named Pablo and a half-sister called Algra, who everyone nicknamed Legs. Then came another half-brother, Danny. One of her uncles was the actor Walter Huston, and she would one day become the aunt of actor Jack Huston. But even with all these people, Anjelica often felt like no one was really there. Then everything shattered on January 29th, 1969. Enria was just 39 when she died in a violent car crash near John, France. The car veered off the road and into a ditch. Anjelica, who was 17 at the time, felt the earth shift under her feet. Losing her mother that way didn't just bring sadness, it brought rage, abandonment and confusion. She wasn't a child anymore, but not yet grown, and now the one person who had always stayed had vanished. Soon after, she moved from Ireland to London with her father, but nothing about that move felt like a fresh start. It only deepened the emptiness. In London during the late 1960s, Anjelica tried to find herself, but it wasn't easy. She dropped out of school at 16. Kids had bullied her for her height. She stood almost 6 feet tall, and her dyslexia made reading feel like torture. They called her names. She started sneaking into smoky clubs where bands like the Yardbirds played. Her rebellion was quiet but firm. Then at 18, in 1969, she landed her first big modeling job with Vogue. It was a photo shoot in the windswept Irish bogs with photographer Richard Avedon. She looked wild and ethereal, like someone from another world. But behind the camera, she was still hurting. She later admitted to treating her co-model harshly, making him fetch water lilies from cold marshes. The pain of losing her mother still lived just beneath her skin. In 1968, a year before that shoot, she had signed with the powerful Eileen Ford agency in New York. At just 17, she was stepping into a world that looked glamorous but often wasn't. There were creepy photographers, invasive stares, and a constant pressure to look perfect. The lights were bright, but the shadows were darker. Her body was praised and picked apart in equal measure. Inspired by models like Jean Shrimpton and Twiggy, she posed with confidence, but she never felt fully seen. She wasn't just John Huston's daughter. She wanted to be more than a name. At 19, she walked the runways in Paris. Paris Fashion Week in 1970 should have been a triumph. She wore couture for Huston, stood tall under the lights, and smiled for the cameras. But inside, she felt small. The industry wanted thin. It wanted perfect. She tried cocaine. She tried LSD. One night, she wandered the Paris streets in a paranoid haze, unsure where she was or who she'd become. The parties were wild. The money was real. She sometimes earned $1,000 a shoot, but the cost was emotional. This wasn't the life she wanted, not fully. So in 1972, she walked away from the runways and turned toward acting. She enrolled in classes with Peggy Fury in New York and started from scratch. At 21, she wasn't taken seriously. People saw her last name and assumed she hadn't earned her place. Her first film, A Walk with Love and Death, was directed by her father. She was only 18 during filming, and their relationship cracked under the weight of it. He lost patience with her. She couldn't remember her lines. Critics didn't hold back, and neither did her father. He favored her brother Tony, something he would later admit on his deathbed in 1987. That truth told so late only deepened. Old wounds she had known since 1963, when John had called her and Tony to Rome during filming of the Bible, that there was another half-brother named Danny. That memory stayed sharp for years. It was just one more sign of how love in their family always seemed divided. In 1975, she appeared in The Man Who Would Be King. It was a grand film with a huge budget, $8 million at the time, around $45 million today, and scenes shot in the harsh Atlas Mountains of Morocco. But she had just 2 minutes of screen time. On set, Sean Connery fought with John Huston. Storms delayed filming and Anjelica felt invisible. Michael Caine once told her that her accent made no sense. She cried every night, even though the film earned 4 Oscar nominations in 1976. It left her feeling like acting wasn't worth the pain. In 1976, she took a lead role in Swashbuckler. The production was chaotic. One actor, Robert Shaw, was sliced by a sword and needed stitches. The film, shot in Mexico with a $5 million budget only, made $2 million back. Critics were harsh. She was labeled again as a product of nepotism. Inside, she felt like quitting. Outside, she smiled for cameras. Then came 1977. That year, she found herself at Jack Nicholson's house during a nightmare moment in Hollywood history. Director Roman Polanski was there supposedly for a photo shoot with a young girl named Samantha Geimer. But that night, Polanski drugged and assaulted her. Anjelica showed up later and saw nothing obvious, but she later wrote that something had felt wrong. She testified in court and carried the weight of it with her. Polanski fled the country in early 1978, just weeks before he could be sentenced. Anjelica said the whole ordeal broke something in her. In 1976, she also appeared in the last Tycoon film, based on F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel. It should have been a major moment, but behind the scenes things unraveled. She clashed with Robert Dyro. He demanded rewrites and they fought. She walked off set and didn't return for 2 days. The director, Elliot Kazan, had a heart attack during filming, causing delays. The movie flopped. It made $1 million on a $7 million budget. She thought about quitting again. And in 1981, she took a small part in The Postman Always. Rings twice, acting alongside Jack Nicholson and Jessica Lange. This time, the camera caught something magnetic, but off-camera things were falling apart. Nicholson had cheated again this time with Lange. Anjelica had been with him since 1973. That betrayal was too much. In 1980, he confessed to getting another woman pregnant. She hit him hard. The tabloids had a field day. The movie, though, earned $44 million and brought her some praise. In 1985, Anjelica Huston played a cold and cunning hitwoman named Morose Pritzi in Pretty's Honor, a dark comedy directed by her own father, John Huston. Her performance was sharp and dangerous, with just the right mix of humor and menace. On March 24, 1986, at the 58th Academy Awards, she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. It was a huge moment, not just for her, but for her entire family. Her grandfather, Walter Huston, had won an Oscar in 1949, and so had her father, making her the third in line to hold that golden statue. But what most people didn't see was what happened behind the scenes. During filming, her father, already very ill and hooked up to an oxygen tank, pushed her hard. He made her redo a violent kiss scene with Jack Nicholson 20 times in one day and called her performance lousy in front of the crew. She later said it felt like emotional torture. Their father-daughter bond had always been fragile, and that movie brought up old wounds. Even after her Oscar win, she carried the pain with her. 2 years later, in 1987, Anjelica worked with her father again on what would become his final film, The Dead. By then, his health had gotten worse. He was stuck in a wheelchair and had to direct some scenes from his bed using an intercom. Filming took place from January to April, and he passed away on August 28th that same year. Anjelica gave a quiet, heartbreaking monologue in the film as a woman remembering a lost love. Critics said it was one of her most moving performances, but the shoot itself was a struggle. Her father collapsed more than once. She was sick too, battling Epstein-Barr virus. But they both kept going. The movie earned 2 Oscar nominations. For her, it was more than a role. It was goodbye. In 1986, while filming Gardens of Stone, another shock hit. During a battle scene meant to look like the Vietnam War, a prop explosion went wrong. A crew member named David Ball was seriously injured, suffering burns and shrapnel wounds. Anjelica was there when it happened. She later said it shook her trust in the safety of film sets. OSHA fined the studio for violations. The film came out in May 1987, but the accident haunted everyone who worked on it. Then came Crimes and Misdemeanors in 1989. In that film, she played a woman betrayed by the man she loved. But it wasn't just acting. She felt deeply uncomfortable during filming. Director Woody Allen didn't allow rehearsals and only gave one take for emotional scenes. She said it made her feel exposed and nervous. Some scenes were so intense she felt isolated and vulnerable. And years later, when Allen faced controversies, she looked back on that experience with unease, questioning the whole process. One of her most iconic roles came in 1991 when she played Morticia Addams in The Addams Family. But playing Morticia wasn't as effortless as it looked. She wore a metal corset so tight it gave her headaches and stopped her from lying down between takes. Lights were beamed into her eyes in every scene, and her skin was pulled with tape to create a haunting look. By the end of filming, she was so worn out that she burned the entire costume in a bonfire. Still, the film became a massive success, earning over $191 million. She was even nominated for a Golden Globe. She returned in 1993 for Addams Family Values. During one scene, she burned a dollhouse on stage, and that moment was all her idea. It came from her own childhood frustrations with being forced to fit in. Behind-the-scenes filming paused when her co-star Raul Julia became seriously ill with stomach cancer. He died the next year. The film didn't earn as much as the first one, but over time it became a cult favorite. Anjelica had to wear the same painful corset and bright lights again, but her performance turned Morticia into a legend. In The Witches, released in 1990, she transformed into the Grand High Witch. That transformation took up to 7 hours a day in makeup, with another 6 hours to take it off. She wore prosthetics, claws, a fake hump, and a long snout. The lights were so hot, she nearly fainted while filming the witch conference scene. Meanwhile, author Roald Dahl was furious about the film's happy ending. He even threatened to remove his name from the credits before he died in November 1990. Years later, the makeup in the 2020 remake sparked controversy for how it portrayed limb differences. But Huston's version still stands as the most iconic. In 1995's The Crossing Guard, she acted opposite Jack Nicholson, her former partner of 17 years. Their real-life breakup had been painful. He had cheated and fathered a child with another woman. That raw pain spilled onto the screen. In one scene, she slapped him without warning. She later admitted the anger was real. The story was about grief and revenge, and it mirrored their own unresolved past. Though it didn't make much money, it earned strong reviews and showed just how deep Anjelica could go. By 1998, she played the evil stepmother in Ever After a Cinderella Story. During a riding scene, she fell and hurt her back, but kept going. The story gave a feminist twist to the old fairy tale, and Anjelica loved that. Her character was cruel but also complex. She later said the role helped show how even villains can teach hard lessons. The film earned nearly $100 million and became a beloved favorite. In 1999, she stepped behind the camera to direct and star in Agnes Brown, playing a widow in 1967 Dublin, raising 7 kids alone. It was personal. Her own grandfather was Irish, and the film reflected struggles she understood. But despite warm reviews, it only made $1 million. Hollywood didn't promote it. In interviews, she spoke out against the bias women directors faced. She revealed how male executives doubted her. And that year, only 7% of major films were directed by women. The story of Agnes was also her own, filled with loss, courage, and being overlooked. In 2008, she voiced Queen Clarion in Disney's Tinkerbell. She recorded her lines alone in a studio for long hours and based the character's grace on her own mother, a ballerina who died in a car crash when Anjelica was just 17. That connection made her voice work deeply emotional. She stayed with the series through 6 films until 2014. It was a surprising shift in her career, and it earned her a steady new audience. in 2004's Iron-Jawed Angels. She played suffragette leader Carrie Chapman Catt. The outdoor shoots in freezing weather were so extreme that Anjelica caught pneumonia and was hospitalized. Still, she pushed through. The film showed women being force-fed during hunger strikes and drew millions of viewers. She later donated her $750,000 to learn fee to women's rights groups. In 2006, she appeared in 5 episodes of Huff, playing a tough therapist who also struggled with her own issues. She did a bold nude scene at 55 years old without a body double. Many were shocked, but she said it was important to fight back against Hollywood's ageism. Ratings jumped for that episode, and critics praised her bravery. She also directed the 2005 TV movie Riding the Bus with My Sister, but clashed with producers who watered down the story. She later refused to promote the final version, saying it no longer felt real. Despite that, the film drew 15 million viewers on its premiere night, but she vowed never to work on another network TV project again in 2012. She played Eileen Rand in NBC's smasher behind-the-scenes drama about Broadway. She brought real-life fire to the role, even improvising tantrums based on old theater memories. But the show's ratings fell and it was cancelled after 2 seasons. She said it was a harsh lesson in how brutal TV could be. Then, in 2019, at 68 years old, she took on a surprising role in John Wick Chapter 3. She trained for 6 weeks to perform fight scenes, even slapping Keanu Reeves 17 times in a single take. What no one knew at the time was that she was quietly battling throat cancer. She had a tumor and underwent 12 radiation sessions, losing 15 pounds during filming. At one point, she fractured her wrist during a stunt but kept going. In a later interview, she said the role felt like a fight for her life. Finally, in 2022, she narrated the Andy Warhol Diaries on Netflix. She spoke the words of Warhol himself, sharing memories from the wild 1980s art scene. She described parties filled with drugs and moments where careers almost ended. She even admitted experimenting herself and said doing the documentary helped her face that part of her life. The show became a hit, and critics said her voice brought the pages to life with honesty and pain. Anjelica Huston was just 17 when her life changed. In 1969, she met a photographer named Bob Richardson during a Harper's Bazaar shoot for her film A Walk with Love and Death. He was 41, more than twice her age. The moment they got close, everything became chaotic. Bob was battling bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. His moods would swing without warning. He could be deeply loving one moment and terrifying the next. He once threw a bottle at her head during a trip to Mexico. She was so broken by it all that on the 4th day of one of his outbursts, she locked herself in the bathroom at the Chelsea Hotel and slit her wrists. Blood covered the floor. She screamed out, "Will this make you love me?" She had to be rushed to the hospital for stitches. That trip to Mexico also ended with both of them almost being arrested for public indecency on a beach. The relationship kept twisting like a knife until it finally snapped in March 1973. That day, she returned from a fishing trip with her father, the famous director John Huston. She looked Bob in the eye and told him, "If you were the last person alive, I wouldn't shake your hand." In return, Bob destroyed all of her belongings. The relationship gave the world unforgettable photographs, but it stole her youth. During that same time, in 1972, Anjelica got involved with actor Ryan O'Neal. That relationship also exploded. At a fancy party in Beverly Hills, Ryan suddenly turned violent in front of guests. He grabbed her by the hair and smashed his forehead into hers. She stumbled away in pain and hid in the bathroom, but he followed and beat her head with open hands until he simply walked out. Some say she hit him back with a champagne bottle before it ended. He once even threatened her sister Algra and openly snorted cocaine. She ended it that very night, but the pain from that night stayed with her forever. Soon after, she returned to someone more familiar, Jack Nicholson. By then, her world was already in pieces. In 1969, her mother, ballerina Enrique Soma, died in a car accident at just 39. Anjelica was shattered. She said it felt like her heart turned to ash. She tried therapy. She kept a journal. But nothing could replace her mother. Even flowers from friends like photographer Dick Avden made her feel more furious than comforted. She admitted the wrist-slitting incident with Bob Richardson wasn't just about him. It was the weight of her grief. Her mother had lost her own mother at 4. Now the pain was repeating. In the years that followed, Anjelica turned to acting and drugs trying to stay afloat. By 1973, after the breakup with Bob and her short violent time with Ryan, she began rebuilding piece by piece. Everything shifted again on April 22nd, 1973. That night, Jack Nicholson invited her to his birthday party. She was 21, he was 36. They danced for hours. That night, she didn't go home. The next morning, he gifted her a Mercedes convertible. But the fairy tale cracked quickly. He carnaled a date soon after saying he had something else to do. That something turned out to be a secret meeting with his ex-girlfriend Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and the Papers. That kind of betrayal became a pattern. Nicholson was charming, but he didn't hide his affairs. In 1973, during a break in their relationship, Anjelica left him briefly to be with Ryan O'Neill. But after the violence, she came back to Jack in 1975. By 1977, they moved in together on Mulholland Drive. But Jack had already slept with so many women waitresses, models, actresses. She found women's clothes in his home more than once. He fathered other children. One day in 1982, a young Gwyneth Paltrow whispered that Nicholson scared her. Anjelica replied, "With good reason. He scares me too." By the time Christmas of 1980 came around, the cracks were deep. That day, Nicholson gave her a diamond and pearl bracelet. It once belonged to Ava Gardner and was a gift from Frank Sinatra. But this wasn't a sweet surprise. It was a cover-up. She had just found out about an affair he had with a Danish model while she was away reshooting. The postman always rings twice. The bracelet, worth around $50,000 today, felt like a trap. They fought about it. She called him out on betting 15 women that year alone. She kept the bracelet, but the meaning of it never faded. In 1985, she won an Oscar for Prix Honor, acting alongside Nicholson. But even success couldn't fix what was broken. That same year, he proposed for the third time. The first was in 1975, then again in 1980, and now once more. But she turned him down each time. By 1988, during rehearsals for The Grifters, Jack had another affair. Then came the final blow. In December 1989, they were having dinner when Jack looked at her and said that his new girlfriend, 26-year-old Rebecca Broussard, was pregnant. Anjelica snapped. She stormed into his office and beat him with her fists again and again until he cowed. He tried to joke about it later, but the pain was real. Nicholson already had a daughter from 1963. Now he was going to have two more, Lorraine in 1990 and Ray in 1992. Huston moved out the next month in January 1990. She had found out about the pregnancy not from Jack, but from a Playboy article. Years later, she admitted that hitting him felt good. It was the only time she got to release the pain of all those years and all those women. Still, they remained strangely close. And when wildfires swept across California in 2025, it was Jack who called her first. On January 7, 2025, the wildfires burned over 6,500 structures across Los Angeles. Huston had to flee her ranch in the Sierra Nevada with her dogs, cats, and housekeeper. Her home almost didn't survive. Power and water were still out weeks later. That's when Jack Nicholson, now 87, offered his home to her. She was 73. She said it was heartbreakingly sweet. It reminded her that even after all the pain, their bond had never truly disappeared. Around that time in February 2025, Anjelica did something else that shocked everyone. She finally admitted why she stayed with Jack for 17 years, despite everything. "I loved him." She said she never thought his cheating was personal. It was just how he was. She learned to protect herself. She said being in Hollywood meant you had to be tough. And even when he fathered a child with another woman in 1990, she never hated him. She said their friendship still mattered. She never sued him for money, even though his many affairs reportedly cost him over $10 million in settlements. Instead, she used her heartbreak to create powerful roles. Then, in April 2025, another secret came out. Anjelica revealed that she had been diagnosed with cancer back in 2019, just before John Wick. Chapter 3. Parabellum was released. She kept it hidden for 6 years now, 73 and 4 years cancer-free. She said the illness made her see life differently. She didn't say what kind of cancer it was, but she shared how it made her laugh more and stress less. Her doctors had saved her life. She said she was proud to survive. And finally, she was learning to live fully just like the roses she planted in her.